in the vast, brutal Australian outback. The response was swift and broad-ranging. It's now been 2 months since Gus Lamont, a blonde, curly-haired child described as both shy and adventurous, went missing from his family's homestead in a remote part of South Australia. The 60,000-hectare, 148,000-acre Oak Park Station is about 40 kilometers from the nearest town, Yunta, population 60. Yunta is about 300 kilometers inland from SA's capital, Adelaide. At 5 p.m. on Saturday, 27 September, Gus was playing on a mound of dirt at the family sheep station. When his grandmother went to call him inside 30 minutes later, he was gone. An extensive police search failed to find him and was scaled back in early October. Police had prepared Gus's family for bad news. He may not have survived due to the passage of time, his age, and the nature of the terrain he is missing in, authorities said. The ADF were called in to help search for Gus. Photograph. SA Police. A week later, an expanded search was underway after survivability specialists had given advice about how far Gus could have traveled. So far, police, Australian Defence Force members, State Emergency Service members, a drone, 33 vehicles, dogs, police divers, mounted police, and 2 utility terrain vehicles have been deployed. SA Police said it was one of the state's largest and most intensive searches for a missing person. A dam on the property is searched, without results. Photograph. SA Police. There is a large dam, which police drained on 31 October to no avail. Last week, police learned there were also 6 abandoned, uncovered, unfenced mine shafts on the property. The nearest mine is 5.5 kilometers from the homestead, which seems like an astounding distance for a 4-year-old to walk. The rest are up to 12 kilometers away. We are determined to explore every avenue in an effort to locate Gus Lamont and provide some closure for his family, the Deputy Police Commissioner Linda Williams said. But when the mine shafts were searched, there was no sign of Gus. Police expand search for missing boy Gus in Outback SA after advice from survival specialists. SA Police said on Wednesday some of the shafts were relatively shallow and could be visually inspected, while others were up to 20 meters deep, meaning specialized equipment was needed. The family of Gus have been advised of the results of the renewed searching and are being supported by a victim contact officer, police said. About 50,000 people go missing in Australia in each year, but almost all of them, 99%, are found. Many of the disappearances are intentional, while the unintentional ones can include people who get lost, including people with dementia and those who are victims of crime. The police have said all along there is no suggestion of foul play in the case of Gus. About 2/3 of missing persons are under 18, but again, most are found safe and well within 24 hours. According to the Australian Federal Police's National Missing Persons Coordination Centre, not all of Australia's missing persons get the same level of attention as Gus. A Senate inquiry into missing and murdered Aboriginal women and children found public attention often overlooks missing people who are not viewed as newsworthy or shareworthy. Prof. Sarah Wayland of Central Queensland University wrote, "This can negatively affect recovery efforts, the resources invested, and community support for those left behind." SA is also home to one of Australia's biggest mysteries of all time, the Beaumont children, who haven't been seen in almost 60 years. 3 young children, Jane, Arna, and Grant Beaumont, vanished from an Adelaide beach in 1966. Theories and new searches for the trio continue to this day. The outback is also replete with myths, mysteries, and murders, adding to the sad intrigue around the Lamont case. People have been spreading conspiracy theories and AI-generated misinformation about the boy and his family. And police have also been frustrated by people calling in with their opinions. The family are cooperating with police but are not speaking to the media, and media have been repeatedly warned to stay off the property. Police have not ruled out returning to the property as the investigation continues. After Gus Lamont disappeared, the local search team returned to his house. They'd already combed the woods behind the property, the drainage paths near the golf course, even the railroad crossing half a mile down Sycamore Bend. But the house still felt wrong. One of the volunteers stepped across the living room floor and heard something, a soft, muted tap, almost like someone knocking from below. He froze. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Another volunteer brushed it off. It's an old house. Wood settles. They moved on. But imagine, just for a moment, that it wasn't the house settling. Because if this possibility is real, everything we thought we knew about this case collapses. And while you're here, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Cortex. We go deeper than anyone else into cases that leave investigators, families, and entire communities questioning everything they thought they knew. Tonight, we're stepping into an uncomfortable, rarely explored possibility. A possibility that flips the Gus Lamont case upside down. What if Gus Lamont never truly left? Not metaphorically, not in the poetic sense, not in the his memory lives on kind of way, but literally. What if the familiar narrative, the one we've repeated for years, is wrong? What if the idea that Gus walked out of his suburban home in New Jersey on a quiet March evening was simply an assumption, a guess? A story created because no other explanation made sense. But what if the truth was never outside those walls? Because the truth never left them? Tonight, we explore the hypothetical that no one wanted to consider. March 12, 2015, Sycamore Bend, New Jersey. A quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood with SUVs in the driveways, kids biking home from school, and porch lights timed to flick on at 7 p.m. Gus Lamont lived in a modest two-story home on a corner lot. 46 years old. A project manager at a manufacturing firm. Known for keeping to himself but polite enough with neighbors to never raise suspicion. Nothing about Gus suggested a man who wanted to vanish. The last known movements. He replied to a work email at 4:17 p.m. He waved to a neighbor while bringing in a delivery package around 5. At about 6:20 p.m., he was heard shutting his garage door. And that is the last confirmed sighting of him. The next morning, a coworker called police when Gus didn't show up at an important meeting, something completely out of character. When officers entered the house, this is what they found. Front door unlocked. Keys on the kitchen counter. Wallet still there. Phone on the dining table. His car parked neatly in the driveway. A short handwritten note that said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." That was it. No signs of a struggle. No forced entry. No evidence of someone else being in the home. Gus Lamont had simply evaporated. Public reaction. The neighborhood panicked. Local Facebook groups shouted theories. News vans parked along Sycamore Bend. Detectives canvassed the area. Search parties formed. Volunteers combed the woods behind his house. And almost immediately, without any real evidence, one explanation took over. Gus walked away from his life. That belief shaped everything from that moment forward. And it may have been the most damaging assumption in the entire case. Now let's break down the most widely accepted theories, the ones people circulated for years, and why each one contains holes big enough to drive an entire investigation through. This was the earliest explanation. People claimed Gus ran because he was overwhelmed by money problems. But guess what? There were no financial issues, no debt, no loans, no overdue notices, no suspicious withdrawals. His bank record showed months of normal activity. His credit score was stable. His bills were auto-paid. Nothing supported the idea that he ran from financial disaster. Another popular angle. He moved somewhere far away, started over, changed his name. But there was no passport activity, travel record, bus ticket, airport camera footage, rental car, hotel check-in, digital footprint of any kind. And here's the biggest piece of evidence against this theory. He left every essential item behind. No ID, no cash, no clothes, no vehicle, no phone. People don't start new lives with nothing. Some said he simply walked away due to emotional strain. But his family said he showed no signs of depression, instability, or drastic life changes. There was no fight, no crisis, no sudden shift in behavior. People who choose self-liberation from their lives usually show something, a hint, a change, a build-up. Gus had none. Here's where things start to feel unusual. While investigators were focused outward searching forests, tracking bus routes, checking airport manifests, they ignored the strange clues that pointed in the opposite direction. 1. A neighbor heard footsteps inside the house. 2 days after police secured the scene. They told her it was probably an officer or investigator doing a secondary sweep. No officers were in the house at that time. 2. A search volunteer flagged a blocked crawl space. It was sealed off with what looked like fresh plywood. This was never examined. 3. A delivery driver heard something from the side of the house, a soft, rhythmic sound. He assumed it was a sump pump malfunctioning. 4. A slight odor reported months later. Police brushed it off, claiming it came from trash bins after a heat wave. No one verified the source. All these small, discarded details, each insignificant on its own, form a pattern when viewed together. A pattern pointing inward rather than outward. And if this case is already pulling you into its shadows, hit the like button. It helps more people discover Crime Cortex and keeps the episodes coming. Let's talk about the psychology at play. When someone disappears without signs of violence, without a crime scene, without a clear motive, the mind fills in the blanks. Detectives, neighbors, the media, even family, all reach for the explanation that felt safest. He left on purpose. That's why we don't see anything wrong, because the alternative is far worse. That something happened inside the house, something investigators failed to catch. Police didn't treat the home as a potential containment site because nothing screamed danger. No overturned chairs, no blood, no forced entry. So the assumption snowballed. The note suggested a voluntary departure. The unlocked door reinforced it. The empty house sealed it. By the end of the week, the narrative was solidified. Gus walked out. But what if that single assumption created a massive blind spot? What if it led investigators to search in the wrong direction for 10 years? Now we step into the core of the episode, the hypothetical that forces us to rethink everything. Possibility 1. Hidden spaces inside the home. American suburban homes, especially older ones, are filled with odd architectural pockets, crawl spaces, utility voids, attic gaps, understair compartments, areas behind HVAC systems, spaces big enough for an adult to hide or become trapped. There are real cases where police missed. People living in attics, people trapped behind false walls, people surviving under floorboards, people using hidden access points no one even noticed. It happens more often than you'd expect. What if Gus ended up in one of those spaces? Possibility 2. Gus was alive inside the property for hours or days. This is the darkest angle. Imagine Gus falling or getting stuck. Imagine an injury. Imagine confusion, disorientation, or medical distress. The house was searched, but only superficially. What if they walked right past him? Right above him? Right beside him? The volunteer who heard tapping on the floorboards, what if that wasn't imagined? Possibility 3. Someone helped stage his disappearance. This doesn't necessarily imply foul play. It could be someone trying to cover an accident, a mistake, or an unexpected event. But consider the open door, the vague note, the blocked crawl space, the odd noises, the odor reported months later. What if someone wanted investigators to look outward, not inward? This theory doesn't claim guilt. It simply introduces the possibility that someone influenced the narrative. And if that's true, why? If Gus truly never left the property, we have to consider the physical and psychological layers. Practical questions. How long could someone survive in a confined space? How quickly would someone become dehydrated? Could anyone nearby hear them? Could their voice be mistaken for the house settling? Could ventilation make sounds hard to identify? Psychological questions. Was Gus conscious? Was he capable of signaling for help? Did panic prevent him from alerting anyone? Could he have been immobilized or disoriented? Real cases show people trapped inside homes for days without detection. Some survived, some did not, but all were far closer than anyone realized. Now let's talk about the decade that followed. This case became what detectives refer to as a direction-locked investigation, meaning, once a theory is established early, it shapes everything that follows. Because Gus was assumed to have left, evidence inside the home was underrated. Odd noises were dismissed. Structural anomalies weren't inspected deeply. The home wasn't treated as a possible containment site. Searches focused miles away rather than feet away. Meanwhile, his family processed the disappearance as abandonment, an emotional wound that reshaped their lives. And if this theory is opening your eyes to a completely different angle on the Lamont case, consider sharing this video. Someone else might catch a detail that sparks a breakthrough. So here we are, a decade later, with a question that demands to be asked. What if the real mistake wasn't failing to search far enough, but failing to search close enough? Imagine investigators returning to the property today with ground-penetrating radar, modern thermal imaging, forensic odor detection tools, structural inspection equipment, advanced DNA retrieval techniques. New technology could uncover what old assumptions buried. And if the property still holds secrets, this case could take a turn no one expected. This episode isn't claiming what happened to Gus Lamont. It's presenting a perspective almost no one has explored. The possibility that Gus never left the house. The possibility that the early assumption misled everyone. The possibility that the answer to a decade-long mystery might be found not miles away, but inches, behind a wall, under a floor, inside a space no one wanted to question. And the most haunting possibility of all, what if investigators walked past the truth? What if neighbors heard him without knowing? What if the sound under the floorboards wasn't the house settling, but a man who needed help? The disappearance of Gus Lamont is one of those cases that lingers in the public mind, not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. For 10 years, the world asked, where did Gus go? But maybe the better question is, where did he stay? If this theory proves anything, it's that sometimes the truth hides in the last place we're willing to look. If you want more deep dive true crime breakdowns that challenge the official story, make sure you subscribe to Crime Cortex and turn on notifications. We have more cases on the way that will change the way you think about disappearances forever. Thank you for watching. Stay curious and stay safe.